This episode is brought to you by Springbrook Autism Behavioral Health. Springbrook provides comprehensive, evidence-based care for children and adolescents with autism and other developmental disabilities. With residential services, educational programming, and clinical support all in one place, Springbrook focuses on helping each individual build skills, increase independence, and reach their full potential. To learn more about their program and how they're supporting families every day, visit their website at springbrookbehavioral.com. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to All Abilities, No Filter, the podcast where we bring together experts, advocates, educators, and families for honest conversations that help individuals of all abilities thrive. One of the greatest concerns many parents of children with disabilities have is a question that can feel both overwhelming and really difficult to discuss. What happens when I'm no longer here to care for my child? While families spend countless hours navigating therapies, educational services, medical appointments, and daily supports, many never receive guidance on whether financial planning is necessary to ensure long-term security for their loved ones. Today's guest, Michael Ringel, CPA financial advisor, also chartered special needs consultant, and the founder of Special Needs Wealth Planning. Michael has dedicated his career to helping families of individuals with disabilities navigate complex financial decisions and create plans that protect both their loved ones and their futures. Through his Planning for Two Lifetimes approach, he helps families understand special needs trusts, ABLE accounts, government benefits, retirement planning, and strategies that can provide peace of mind for years to come. Whether you're a parent, caregiver, educator, or professional working with individuals with disabilities, today's conversation is packed with practical information and resources that can help families prepare for a future with confidence. So please join me in welcoming Michael Ringel, and please sit back and enjoy today's conversation. Thanks, guys. All right, Michael, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Jake. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I think this conversation is going to be something a lot of the parents, caretakers, all of our listeners here can really benefit from some of the awesome information I know you have to share. But before then, if you wouldn't mind just kind of telling our audience a little bit about yourself, what kind of brings you on the show today?
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. My name is Michael Ringel. I am a CPA financial advisor, and in this case, what's most important is a chartered special needs consultant. I founded a company a while back called Special Needs Wealth Planning, and our purpose, our mission, is to help families with children with special needs plan for two lifetimes. I got involved in helping and serving families many, many years ago. We have family members who are on the autism spectrum somewhere, from some cousins who are going to need lifetime care to others that have, are more advanced, but have some social issues that they need to take care of and work on. And just a passion of mine. My wife is a speech pathologist. And so for the last 25 years, I've been around listening and observing her and everything that she does to support families that she works with. And my daughter, Sydney, is a fourth grade teacher on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, living a New York City lifestyle, and is in an inclusive classroom. Her background is in special education, inclusive education at Syracuse University, and they work in a co-teaching environment. So it's her and another teacher support and teach about 30 children in New York City.
Man, that's awesome. So you're kind of catching it from all sides. Like I said, my next question was going to be what kind of inspired you to work in this particular area of financial planning, but you kind of answered my question because it is, you kind of got it going all around you. And a lot of the time when we're speaking with people that work in this field or help and support, it's kind of that way. You kind of, you see the need almost in all this. And I think what you do is so awesome because it's something that people don't really think about ever. Like my background's in education.
Right.
Been working in special education classrooms for a long time. So talking about with parents about services and educational settings and things like that. But the financial aspect of it, even as someone as myself who has over a decade of experiences, it almost goes over my head sometimes because myself, I have a financial planner. I don't necessarily look forward to my meetings with him a lot of the time because a lot of stuff he says goes over my head with the acronyms and the letters he throws at me, and I trust him to do what's best. But then kind of preparing for this episode, I kind of went through my head as like all this additional things that parents with children with special needs or even just physical impairment, whatever it is, all this other things that they have to plan for, because it's just like you said, and I'll let you elaborate that you have to plan for 2 lives. When you kind of are explaining that to parents, kind of what are your thought processes on that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We worked with hundreds of families and met thousands. And what we discovered is most families are so overwhelmed with what's going on in their day-to-day lives that they know that this planning and work is important. The challenge is they just don't make it urgent. And rightfully so. They're so busy dealing with IEPs and therapies, dealing with all the things, other family members who may be neurotypical, that they know this is important, but they just don't make it urgent. Mm-hmm. And it's our responsibility when we work with families is to guide them through that. It doesn't have to be that difficult. And you're right, there are some things that these families have to deal with that are not, well, they're a little bit more advanced than a neurotypical family.
Sure.
They need to think about what's going to happen when the parents aren't here. That's probably the number one concern, the number one question of why people come to us is they want to make sure that when they're gone, and it's inevitability, they're not going to be here someday, that their child, their government benefits are protected, right? They want to know that everything's going to be okay. And so that's probably the number one reason why people come to us is they want to help go from a financial world of chaos to clarity.
Absolutely. Well, what do you say to parents a lot of time? Because I see the same stuff. It's like I worked with parents where their child, we've got them into post-secondary stuff where they're going to college, they're doing programs there, and kind of what you just said kind of reflects a little bit me. They look at you and go, how are we going to get them prepared for when I'm gone? No one's going to be here to take care of them. And they're freaking out because I've dealt with parents or worked with them where probably the first 50% of the conversation is just getting them to relax a little bit, just to take that deep breath and almost get them to trust you a little bit. Like, we're here to help. We're here to make sure that we set out a plan that will benefit you and will help you. What's kind of the first stages to the conversation?
No, that's a great point. The first thing that we do is we listen, and we talk to families and we ask them what's most important to them.
Yeah.
What's most important to them is making sure that when they're not here, that their money, that they leave their child or children, or they may have family members that are, special needs children and neurotypical children. And I just don't mean kids under the age of 18. I mean, we work with families where the adults are 65, 70 years old and their children are 40.
Yeah.
Right. So it's their offspring. And what they want to know is, how can they protect the benefits? How can they leave as much money as possible to them without disqualifying them from receiving those benefits? And we have educational seminars that we invite families to. In fact, this week we held one. We called it a deep dive into special needs trust and ABLE accounts.
Yeah.
Two tools, right, that a lot of families may have heard of. They may even have them, but just because you have them doesn't mean there's a strategy or philosophy behind how to use them in a plan. Now, some families may have already taken the steps of created a third-party special needs trust, maybe a first-party special needs trust, an ABLE account. They got some really great documents, but the documents are only as powerful as the planning behind them.
Right.
And so the first thing we do is when we work with families, once they come to us, well, they come to us in a lot of ways. Number one, through education, like podcasts that you invited me to be on. I speak at national conferences. We hold webinars with many organizations. And the first thing we do is help them understand that, they're going to be okay. And step number one in the process, our planning process, is helping them get financially organized.
Sure.
Most people's financial world, it's like a junk drawer in the kitchen, right? Think about it for yourself. Like even though you have a financial advisor, and a lot of families that come to us are already working with somebody. The challenge is they're not a specialist, right? They're a general practitioner, just like if you went to your primary care physician for a doctor and they said, hey, you know what? I might hear a murmur in your heart. Go see a specialist. Go see a cardiologist, right? The primary care physician is not going to take care of it. Well, same thing in the financial planning. A lot of people who we work with may already have an advisor. And then they come to us and say, hey, we need to talk to a specialist who really knows, who looks through the lens of, I've got some challenges with my children. How do I leave them money the right way so it doesn't disqualify them from getting benefits? So our first step in our planning process is to help families get financially organized with no judgment, right? It doesn't matter where you are today. You are where you are. It's awesome. So let's take an inventory of saying, here's what you have today. What does your balance sheet look like? And if you continue down the road that you're currently on, if you continue doing what you're doing, here's the predictable outcome. And if you're okay with that outcome, well, then you don't need us and you don't need an advisor and you just keep doing what you're doing and all is great.
Yeah.
But most families realize that they need to learn a lot of other different ideas and strategies. So we take them through a planning process called the 2 Lifetime Blueprint, where we coach and educate them and say, okay, here's where you are. Mm-hmm. Well, here's some other ideas to make sure that the wealth is protected properly. Also to make sure that you live a life during your retirement years without compromise. Because a lot of times families think that they have to sacrifice their life's work in order to leave money for their child or children. Mm-hmm. And we show them that the possibility of them having abundance and be able to leave a huge legacy is also possible.
Absolutely. That's awesome. That's so awesome, because it is, I feel like these families, they just, every day they find a new worry. Every day they find something that they have to consider that a neurotypical family or a family that's not in this typical situation doesn't have to deal with. And they find that, I've had conversations with dads where it's just, they're not mad about the situation. They find it just so unfair. It's just, we love our child, but this additional work we have to do is so impactful. So it's awesome that people like you see that need and aren't just generalizing, you just need financial advice. You need financial guidance in this particular area, which is so cool. And then you mentioned 2 things I would just love to ask you about, because I know nothing about them, is a special needs trust, and it was an ABLE account, I believe. What are they? What are the differences? Because I've heard of, I think talking to you is maybe my 3rd time ever hearing about either one of them, and I found it so interesting researching them.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the questions. So when it comes to estate planning, which is how you want your assets to be left to your heirs, you have a couple options, right? Number one is you can leave everything outright to your children. So a lot of families come to us and they've already created wills because when they realized they were going to have children, they wanted to make sure that if something happened to either spouse, money was going to go to the other one and then to the children. No matter how much money goes into that trust, your child will not be in their name, and therefore will not disqualify them from getting benefits.
Wow.
So the planning that we do is to, number one, educate parents that a third-party special needs trust is something to consider. In fact, the webinar that we did this week was all about special needs trust and ABLE accounts, and we had over 170 families registered to join us. So part of our education process is to invite families to come and learn. There's also something called a first-party special needs trust. And a first-party special needs trust is exactly what it sounds like. It's created theoretically by your child. Even though your child may or may not be able to do that, money in your child's name needs to be moved out of their name. Right? So let's say your child won a medical award because of something that happened at birth, or a loving family member left them an inheritance but didn't know about protecting it in a third-party special needs trust. So what they did was they gave them the money outright. Well, because if it's more than $2,000, it disqualifies them. A first party or a payback trust needs to be created. The money needs to be moved from the child's social security number to the trust. Mm-hmm. The money in the trust is then protected. It could be spent for supplemental care while they receive SSI and Medicaid. But here's the kicker. Upon the passing of your child, the primary beneficiary is typically the state you live in because they want to get paid back or reimbursed for any Medicaid expenses that they provided throughout your child's lifetime. Mm-hmm. Anything left over after that would go to the other beneficiaries. That's why it's also known as the payback trust. Mm-hmm. Right? A third-party special needs trust, the beneficiary is whoever you designate. The state is not going to get paid back from Medicaid. Mm-hmm. So the special needs planning that we do is to educate parents on why they might want that, and then show them eventually how to fund it and how to fund it properly.
Gotcha. Wow. That's great just to learn about, because it is just something that, again, parents that I can deal with in my area, that's just something that they never speak with me about, or I'm able to learn from them about, but that planning, you said, is such great to hear, and they're able to do that. Let me ask you something else, and this is another thing that I see a lot of, and I just got done speaking with a dad again at a conference I was at, and he was planning on retiring, getting to that age, and he has 2 special needs children that are going to need support for probably a very long amount of time. And he actually just had to take another job after being retired for about 18 months because he just had to take it on. Have you seen that in your area where parents are having to delay retirement or keep pushing it back because of those extra expenses and things they're having to do? And I didn't know if you had any strategies or advice or anything that y'all particularly offer with that, because I know retirement in these parents' eyes is often something that it's a hope and a prayer a lot of the time.
Yeah, and it's all about planning, right? So it's being able to figure out, how much cash flow is coming into their financial world, how much is going out, where it's coming from, what are the sources. And typically parents that we work with, they're going to supplement care for their children while they're here, right? Just like they would at any age, parents support their children for a long time. It's when they're not here that parents really worry. And that's where certain financial products come into play that could provide that peace of mind, knowing that upon their death, a boatload of money is going to show up someday to fund the special needs trust.
Yeah.
And the product is life insurance, and there are different types of life insurance. There's term insurance, which lasts for a specific amount of time and typically requires the least amount of cash flow. So the younger you are, the less expensive it is, but it ends. So if you buy a 20-year term policy, yes, it's going to be inexpensive, and yes, it's going to require the least amount of cash flow. But I view it as the most expensive because when the term is up after 20 years, then you have to get more. Because in the case of a family with a child with special needs, that death benefit needs to show up someday. It has to. So therefore, it needs to be permanent. And with term insurance, if when the 20-year or 30-year term is up, you're 20 or 30 years closer to mortality. And if your health changes, the insurance companies could charge you more money, or you could be uninsurable whatsoever. I mean, a personal story is I bought my life insurance. I bought some term insurance in the year 2000. I converted it to permanent insurance along the way as my income went up. And within that 20-year period in 2015, I was diagnosed with a heart issue. Unknown. Found out by accident. Again, I went to my primary care physician. He said, I might hear a heart murmur. You need to go to a specialist. The specialist in New Jersey said, you need to go to NYU. Now, here in New Jersey, when somebody says you got to go to NYU, you go, uh-oh. So I go there. I was diagnosed with something called HCM, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. You might know it as athlete's heart. You ever hear the story of the 18-year-old healthy kid who just dies on the football field for no reason?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's it.
Okay.
And I didn't find out till I was, 45 years old, and I was doing crazy athletic stuff. But from a health point of view, from a longevity point of view, for my doctors, thank goodness, mild case, normal life expectancy. From an insurance company point of view, I am completely uninsurable.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how much money I want to give an insurance company, term, whole life, doesn't matter, they will not insure me anymore. So thank goodness I had the term insurance, and I converted it all to permanent insurance. And now permanent insurance, it does require more cash flow,
mm-hmm.
right? But it has a savings component to it. It grows like a bond. But more importantly, because it's permanent, it will show up someday when I'm 60, 70, 80. If I died 90, if I died 100 years old, I know with confidence that a certain amount of money is going to fund the trust.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe it's the most effective and efficient way to do that. And it's just a financial tool.
Mm-hmm.
There are other ways to fund a trust. You could use your retirement assets. There are pros and cons to that. You could put a house in a trust. The trust can own a mortgage. Maybe your child lives in the house and the trust owns it. A lot of different things could be done. But funding a special needs trust needs to be taken into consideration along with the retirement income planning for the parents.
Yeah. What do you think? I know you've worked in several families, and you probably see the same things over and over and over. What do you think are the most common mistakes families are making before they come to see you that you're having to kind of walk them through? A lot of the times when we're talking to parents, they don't even know they're making the mistake when they make it, because they always feel like they just have to do what's best for the child, but sometimes they're just not educated enough or just informed enough.
But mistake number one is not doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a strategy that a lot of families make for whatever reason. And a lot of it is because they're overwhelmed and don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Mistake number two is, mistake number two is that they disinherit their loved one. We talked about before is they say, okay, I'm not going to leave money to their child, but they're going to leave it to somebody else. Mm-hmm. Right. So then we talked about disinheriting is not a strategy. Number three is assuming others are going to take care of them. And you really need to put a plan together that outlines who's going to take care of your child. Putting together maybe something called a letter of intent,
mm-hmm.
which is not a legal document, and it's really easy to do. All you need is a piece of paper and a pen or Microsoft Word, and just type everything you can about your child. What do they like? What do they dislike? Who their doctors are? What do they love to do for fun? What are their sports? Who are their friends? Just like a playbook that when something happens, you could just hand over to somebody else, and they could use that to learn everything they can about your child. Mistake number four is using a one-size-fit-all special needs trust. These trusts could be created through a will with a little bit of language, or they can be standalone. And in a standalone special needs trust, it could be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 pages, but it outlines specifically what your wishes are, what to happen with your child, and how the money is going to be used properly. Failing to plan for more than public benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Public benefits to me is just the floor, right? It's the beginning. But making sure that there's enough money going to be available to fund the special needs trust someday that's going to supplement the care that they get from the money through the government. Another mistake is planners who don't use a financial advisor who specializes in special needs planning.
Mm-hmm.
People typically, again, the whole general practitioner versus specialist point of view, people come to us and they have a financial advisor. And we typically stay in our lane if that's the case and share with them what needs to be done from a special needs perspective. You could learn about a designation called the Chartered Special Needs Consultant through the American College and search for an advisor in your area.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure they have the credentials, or if you currently work with somebody, ask them how many families they currently work with or have worked with. Right? It's really important to work with someone who has the experience. Mistake number 7 is failing to include others in the planning.
Yeah.
I mentioned before about families who inadvertently, lovingly leave money to a grandchild, a niece or nephew without knowing that special needs planning needs to be done in order to protect it.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to make sure that those wonderful gifts don't disqualify your child from getting benefits. I was speaking at a conference a while back, and somebody mentioned that their child was left a nice inheritance only to find out that the child got kicked off of SSI and Medicaid, and it took a year for them to get reinstated. And who do you think paid for the expenses for that child during that year? Well, it was the family. So while all intentions are great, failing to include others in the planning is another mistake. Number 8 is choosing the wrong management team. You want to work with a team that really understands what's going on in your world. You want to make sure that in the trust that you pick the right trustees, people who can handle the money, people that will do the right thing by your child or children. If you don't have one, there are professional trustees. There are trust companies that can do this. If you don't have the money to create your own special needs trust, you can find a not-for-profit in your state, and they might have something called a pooled trust. And a pooled trust is exactly what it sounds like. The not-for-profit runs the trust, they manage the money, and you can just open an account with them, and they would take care of everything. There are pros and cons to it, but it is a possibility. Mistake number 9 is failing to protect your loved ones from predators. There are people who, as we all know, love to prey on people who are who have challenges, and therefore we want to make sure that the third-party special needs trust is created in such a way that they're not susceptible to creditors and predators. And then finally, one of the biggest challenges is, failing to properly fund the plan. Putting together a plan so that eventually the special needs trust is going to be funded. In my recommendation, I would not fund a trust today. I would have it sit idle so that it could be funded someday. If you fund a trust now with money, it's going to restrict what that money could be used for, right, for your child, as opposed to you just not putting it in a trust and paying for it outright. And if the investments in it grow, then you have to file tax returns. And it just makes your life a lot more complicated. So, if somebody wants to download the book, they can see those mistakes, they can see the myths that a lot of families deal with, and they can see some examples of what type of planning parents have done in order to really help their family.
That's awesome. And I love the amazing resources that you're providing. And I know your expertise and your experience answering those questions and being able to provide those strategies probably helped countless number of families that need that support and have a hard time finding it, Michael. And that's awesome. And if you wouldn't mind, I know you spoke about the amazing book you wrote, but where can they find the book? Where can parents or people that are in need of your type of services, where can they find you? Where can they reach out? If you wouldn't mind sharing that.
Absolutely. If you go to Planning for Two Lifetimes, it's planning for TWO lifetimes.com. Parents could enter their email information, first name, last name if they choose. They can download a copy of the book for free. They can request one to be sent to them at no charge. And we recommend they read it and schedule a free strategy session with me or my team. And to talk about them and their family and their concerns. And look, if we're not the right advisory team for them, we might be able to point them in the right direction. That's the best thing. They can send me an email at mringel@strategies4forwealth.com. Ask me a question, a concern they might have. They could also go to specialneedswealthplanning.com for another resource that's free to talk about the estate planning documents and the things that I mentioned earlier in the show.
That's amazing. And listeners, all these resources that Michael just got done talking about are going to be available on our website, allabilitiesnofilter.com. They'll be linked to the episode. So please, when this episode drops, which all of our amazing listeners will get an alert and a notification. Please go check all of those out, because just listening to the amazing stuff Michael's talking about, I know you can all benefit from this. Whether it's you or you just know a family that's struggling in this particular area and could use these services and advice, that would be amazing. And then we'll thank you again, Michael, for being able to sit down with us. It was amazing. And thank you, listeners, for taking the time to join us today. And make sure you like, subscribe, go to our website, leave comments, leave questions about things you're interested in or need more information on, and we'll be happy to structure our episodes around you, as we always do. But until then, thank you again for joining us, and we can't wait to get around the table again for our next unfiltered conversation. Thanks, guys.